It's time now for an update regarding Amazon Web Service Workspaces, and here now to provide that update is Jeff Gumpf. Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, Tyler, and good morning, everybody. I'm here to talk about Amazon Workspaces. Amazon Workspaces is a Microsoft Windows desktop in the cloud, if you will. It's a typical virtual desktop infrastructure, and it's a service provided by Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services is an infrastructure as a service provider, and it's part of Amazon.com, the same place that you buy books and other kinds of goods and services. The Amazon infrastructure as a service provides all kinds of IT infrastructure, and many companies in the United States and around the world are using this service rather than building their own servers and storage and other types of base IT infrastructure in their business. So why the interest in virtual desktops? One is manageability. You can manage a whole group of these desktops as a service to a group of people. And we'll talk about some use cases a little bit later in this talk. The other is uniformity. You can make all of these workspaces essentially a cookie-cutter copy of one another, so everybody gets to see the same thing. Ease of access is another advantage. You can access a virtual desktop from basically any kind of device. So a Macintosh or a Windows laptop, for example, or even a tablet that's running iOS or Android. Another advantage of virtual desktops is security. Because they're centrally managed, the central management can make sure that the system is configured and managed properly. And lastly, agility. Virtual desktops can be created literally in about a couple of minutes and made available to people. The configuration of these laptops can be changed very readily, so it's a real advantage at times to use the virtual desktops. Why use AWS? Provisioning virtual desktops requires a lot of complex and expensive infrastructure. AWS creates and operates that kind of infrastructure so that we don't have to do it ourselves. And so that relieves us of a lot of effort and responsibility. And we're able to use the features we want to without having to pay for all of that underlying infrastructure. And we pay for just what we use. And they're easy to provision, manage, and use through AWS. So we have been doing a proof of concept since the beginning of the semester. We have worked with the School of Applied Social Sciences to provide virtual desktops to students. In the past, these students used a computer lab in the MSAS building, but that lab no longer exists, and they needed a way to provide their graduate students access to the software that they used in the class. So we decided to try out and prototype the Amazon Workspaces, and so we worked with several faculty members, and to date we now have about 6 classes and 110 students, and the semester is just about to wrap up. And so by our next presentation, we should have more information about what it took to create and manage this infrastructure for those students and how much it costs. There are other possible use cases for virtual workspaces, any kind of lab environment where specialized software or system configurations are needed, training situations, classroom situations where you have a set of specific kinds of software that you want to provide to all of the students in exactly the same way. Situations where managed secure desktops are required, where, for example, you might be dealing with some type of restricted information. Situations where it's inconvenient to carry a laptop. Situations where there's just a short-term need for a Windows desktop, and after that, so you don't have to invest in buying hardware and then figuring out what to do with it after. And it's a way to provide Microsoft Windows to Mac or Linux users who otherwise may not have that available to them. So that's pretty much what Amazon Workspaces is. So if you have any questions, please ask.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff, for that update. So one question for you. So if I'm like anybody else on campus, I have my own software that I like to install on my computer, like Spotify, for instance. Can users install their own software in an AWS workspace?
An AWS workspace certainly can be configured so that users can install their own software, or they can be configured to prevent people from installing their own software. They're very flexible and can do either.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. And what about in terms of the different labs on campus? We talked a little bit about individual workspaces. Is there a lab use model for this as well?
To date, Amazon does not have a model that is exactly similar to a lab. So today we're providing, for example, in the School of Applied Social Sciences, we're providing a workspace to each student individually. But in the very near future, Amazon is supposed to come out with the lab model where it will be a pool of computers that students or a group would come in to use, and then they would go away.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.